Well, hello, my beautiful Next Gen fam. Welcome to another episode of Mentor Moments with Next Gen HQ. We have an incredible mentor. Some of you may already know who this is, actually, but we're excited to dive into the conversation. So make sure you grab a notebook, you sit back, and you get ready for the inspiration to come. On today's episode, we are so excited to welcome Maren Kate to the stage with us. Maren has been in the business of remote work before work from home was really a thing like it is now this year. So we're excited to kind of dive in and hear a little bit more about her experiences. She is the founding partner of Avra Talent and author and co-creator of Going Remote, a step-by-step process to help people land their remote-friendly dream job. Maren, thank you so much for taking the time from your work from home setup to join us.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Rachel.
So many people already in the community will know you. You have been a part of the Next Gen fam for several years now, isn't it?
I think so.
I love that. Well, we're excited to just have this bit of content with you. I know we've had you on stages before, but now it's time to turn it virtual. But we're going to take you through a little bit of a Next Gen HQ tradition to go ahead and start us off with, which was some rapid fire questions. So I just have a series of quick things for you. Whatever first comes to mind is the answer. Are you all set to go?
Ready to go.
Amazing. What is one book that you'd recommend to others?
A book I recommend all the time is called Curation. I think the subtitle is Selection in a World of Excess. It's one of those it's a little more random and it's not like a big business book that is always on like the bestseller, but I think it is one of the most impactful books of the last decade. Specifically because we're moving from the last 20 years, which was just all about creation. It has never been easier to create, whether it's a blog post, whether it's a website with no code. This book, and I completely follow the logic, says the next 20 years is all about curation. So I think, especially for young entrepreneurs, even if someone is thinking about their next job or what potentially their startup could be, that book is just like gold.
Amazing. I've definitely never heard of this one, but I'm excited to dive in. I love those books that are a little bit more off the beaten path. Amazing. Next rapid fire for you. What is your star sign and do you align with what it says?
So I'm a Gemini. I've been told. I really don't even know what a Gemini stands for, so I have no idea.
All right, I like it. Gemini, we'll have to look it up for you and share some information.
Seriously.
What is your best work from home productivity tip?
I mean, personally for me, my best work from home productivity tip is treating, and I've done this since I was for 15 years working from wherever. I always start the day with a commute pretty much. So whether that is a drive and I go through Starbucks and get my coffee, or I'm a big walker. So now that I'm in Austin, I walk to a cafe that's about a half mile away and I walk back to my office, or I work from outside. But I think starting the day, it creates a go to work thing, and you're moving. I mean, especially if you can walk at all, it's super healthy for you. But just there's something about that kind of mental, all right, where we're going, we're moving to work. That to me is a game changer. And when I don't get that, I notice the rest of my day it doesn't have the same clip.
Yeah, absolutely. That was one of the things I noticed was really important, especially when lockdown and quarantine first started. I needed to somehow get myself fully moving and out of my space in order to feel like the day had started.
Exactly. Even if you just walk around the block, even if you walk around your patio or something, it's that's a big one.
Yeah, amazing. And then finally, what is your best way to decompress for yourself?
Yeah, I mean, similar with the kind of walk to work, I think it's really important to create habits and rituals around starting your day and ending your day. I usually actually have a spreadsheet that tracks different time, stuff that I'm focused on. And so I'll take my notebook, I'll enter in my time for the day. It's a good way to keep myself organized, but it also is it's quitting time. It's checking out. And then after that, I turn off my computer, if I'm fostering a dog, I walk the dog, I start making dinner. But I do think it's like crazy important, especially now with like the bleed of work and life. It's really cool to start your day, and then you really need to be clear about when you stop your day.
I love that. That is definitely something I need to get a little bit better about, having that solid end.
Hmm.
Also, is this Poochie that we see walking behind you, is that a foster?
This isn't a foster. This is actually a dog sitting from a friend of mine.
Oh,
Yeah, this is Chili. She's just been in and out. Another amazing like work from home thing is adoptions and fostering has like gone through the roof, which is super cool. But I
oh,
also noticed that just having animals around or dogs around, it forced you to get up and move, kind of like you'd like go to the water cooler or like go get your coffee from the bodega. That's another kind of like it's both a good thing to do and it's also like a productivity hack.
you heard it from Maren Kate directly. Go and get a dog. It's going to be good
Go
for your
foster.
work day. Amazing. Well, thank you so much for playing along with our rapid fires. Took a little bit more time, but I loved your answers to them. So now we can dive into some of our bigger questions that we have. And I'd love to go ahead and kind of kick it back to the start of your journey. It seems like you very much had foresight into how important remote work and remote cultures were going to be, now that we kind of are experiencing this side of things. But at the beginning of your journey, what was it that inspired you to think about work in a very different manner than was probably the most average around that time? So being in an office, working 9 to 5, what was it that really kind of made you think there's got to be more out there?
I mean, I wish I had had some foresight or whatever. I probably would have done things a lot better. But honestly, it was just I think it's really important to understand what your natural proclivity is in working style. Just like we all have different body types and metabolisms. Some of us like certain foods, some of us are night people, some of us are morning people. There's different types of working styles. And some people don't mind and actually enjoy plugging in and being in one place and having that consistency. Some people like, would rather work for someone and get their paycheck and understand, what they're doing. And some people are like, I'd rather take on the risk and kind of do it myself. I noticed that with remote. I've only really had two jobs. One when I was like 16, I was an assistant over the summer for a friend of my dad's, and I had to be in an office. And then an interim COO role at Calm, the meditation app, and I still didn't even have to be in the office, but like I was in the office each day. And besides that, I've always worked from cafes, my house. I noticed that I need to just the way I'm built and like my mind is I really thrive when I'm able to move and when I'm able to kind of like it's almost like the opposite of work life balance because like throughout my day I'm always oscillating between the two, but that really works well for me. So I think like the biggest takeaway is just like understand how you thrive and understand like literally like what feels right and feels natural to you, like your working style, and then double down on it.
I love that. So really being able to focus on just what makes sense for you as an
Mhm.
employee, as a leader, as a founder, whatever that looks like. And it seems like that's what you picked up on earlier in your career. And now here you are helping other people really understand what that means to create those spaces for their employees, their team members to just kind of flourish in their own way.
Yeah, what feels natural. And if you're a leader, if you're, leading a team, starting a team, it's really important to understand that you can have two individuals doing, you could have two digital marketers and they might both work in very different ways. And I think at the end of the day, whether you're thinking about for yourself or for your team, start with results and then back into it. Like the results are what matter, and then give people the autonomy and the support to figure out the way they're going to best produce those results, because there is a natural inclination in all of us.
I think that leads to an interesting next question, because I love this idea of, especially thinking of the people you're going to be reaching in this. They're young entrepreneurs, they're starting their companies, maybe they even have small teams, and culture is becoming something that they're just having to think about a little bit more as they grow. So how would you encourage a younger entrepreneur who maybe doesn't have a lot of culture experience when it comes to businesses to be able to create an environment that welcomes that flow and that give and that take, with it creating that sense of autonomy, but also knowing how their company is flourishing?
Yeah, I mean, there's kind of like two angles to that. Like one comes down to, you know, data and understanding, like quantifying your goals, your results, and just being super clear, like especially with remote, but because everyone's remote right now, it's incredibly important, but it's always important, is being from day one onward, being super clear about what the goals are, what the sub goals are, and then communicating it to the entire team, having it be real transparent. Like transparency is key. And then from there, like once you have that basic structure and you can do that, there's a variety of tools. You could do it through a Google spreadsheet. Once you have that structure, then it's kind of, especially as an early entrepreneur, you and your co-founders, or if it's a solopreneur, just you, a lot of a company's culture, it comes from the founders, the founding team. So I think that too often there's so much around startups, there's so much around business, like it's so sexy to like start a company, yada yada, in theory, but really understanding, you know, what your culture is and like what you align with, what are your personal core values. That's such a big part. Like that's something we talk about in the Going Remote book, is thinking through not only company core values, but like what are your personal core values? Do you personal core values? If you have of two founders, you're both going to have personal core values. You're going to have goals for life. You're going to have principles you live by, and hopefully like think about it. And then where do you want, like, what's the goal for the company? Where do you want that overlap? And then there's some culture aspects that come in terms of like, you have business goals. Like one of our core values at Avra Talent is extreme ownership. We're fully distributed. Our team is, a lot of our team are contractors that come on and off the platform. And so a really important aspect, like I love the autonomy of like extreme ownership, but it's also important for the business. Like we can't run a business where everybody has to be handheld. So it's like your core values for the company, your culture, again, like what naturally flows to you, and then understand like you as a human, like you as a leader, that's going to be, culture comes from the top, and then when it's embedded, then it starts to like bubble up from the bottom. But at the beginning, that usually starts that way. And just don't try to like, you know, it's easy to copy other cultures. It's easy, you know, there's Zappos, there's Netflix, there's, you know, we work at a crazy culture. There's all these different aspects, and figuring out just like what actually feels right to you and what helps reach those business goals.
I love that. So kind of two sides of this, creating really clear goals and sub goals and making those known and understood and easily accessible by your whole entire team, whether that team is 2 people or 20 plus. And then also that other hand, really focusing on the values. So both the personal values that a founder would bring to the company and also the core value of why your company is a thing and what mission is it actually on this earth to go and accomplish.
Exactly.
I love that. A quick question for you, because I don't actually know the answer to this. Avra Talent, do you have a co-founder or did you found that single-handedly?
So my mother is a partner with me on that, actually. She worked with me at my company before. So she's my partner, she's my co-founder. I would say a lot of it has been, I've been more on the business side, and she's actually a recruiter, so she's been a lot on the recruiting side,
Amazing.
which has actually been really fun. A lot of people don't often work with their family, but I think when it works phenomenally.
Absolutely. Okay, I was curious to see because you mentioned something about when there's co-founders, there you each come with personal values and just things that
Mhm.
have been instilled at you from a young age. So I was curious if you have any advice for when you do have co-founders, how do you make those connect? Or is there a sign that if things aren't connecting, then this isn't meant to work out in the long term?
Yeah, I mean, I had two co-founders at my last company, Zirtual, and I think a lot of what is important when you're understanding culture and those angles from a co-founding relationship is is kind of figuring out like, I mean, I think First Round Capital has a really good long form blog post on finding your co-founder that a woman wrote who was going through the process, and that's really a good one. But at the end of the day, it's like, what are your non-negotiables for both of you, where you want to go, and then there's going to be things you're going to differ on, and that's important. But just figuring out like what are the ones that matter the most, and there can be things that you disagree with on a personal level, as long as you kind of commit to what you choose to go forward, like from a business standpoint. I think that's the biggest one.
I love that. I think a lot of our entrepreneurs listening to this will be curious to hear that, because they're in positions where they're with co-founders, they're looking for co-founders. So it's just so important to find those areas that do align, and those ways that things are just going to flow naturally as they build their company.
You do have to be active about it. It's something in building a co-founding relationship. It's very easy to be like, let's, do a hackathon together. Let's like wrap on projects, blah, blah, blah. But you really do need to, as you're testing out as you're figuring out traction, as you're building your product, as you're testing your MVP with a co-founder, you should also be actively part of the time thinking through the relationship angle. You should be working on your relationship, similar to like most, if you're getting married, do marriage counseling. Like, it's absolutely hands down proven to help marriages last, or help people realize like this actually isn't a fit for me. So I think it's the same thing with co-founding relationships. It's a good corollary.
Co-founders are in a relationship just like any other relationship we would think about. So it
Totally.
takes that work and that thought and that empathy in a lot of ways as well.
Mm-hmm.
Amazing. So shifting forward into a little bit more of the current place that you're at, especially with going remote, which I was really excited to learn a little bit more about. What's been the biggest learning that you've had in really kind of bringing this new venture to life?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. The probably biggest learning I have had is that it is always, if you're a certain type of entrepreneur, it's always, sometimes you just want to build, and it's easy and fun for you to build. Like, we all have things that we really like. And then it's, once something gets built, then it's like, that's the easy part. Then product market, building out traction, building out the team. It's kind of reminded me that it's, and I've seen this in every business I've started, is usually like, you start in the first 3 months, you're like, woohoo, we're going to take over the world. And usually in 3 years, then things start clicking. It's like about 3 years and you're like, oh, okay, I now start to see it. And it's interesting because like going remote, I wrote during quarantine because our business at Avra just went to zero, like so many recruiting agencies. And I was like, well, I have 6 months, I'll do this. And then it's been interesting too, bouncing back, like Avra's actually picked up and we're busier than ever. And a big kind of lesson has been around focus. It's like, it is easy to start things, and then I think the hard part is figuring out like, how do you batch your focus? And there's always going to be something that's going to be kind of like top of mind. So it's deciding, of the projects you're working on, if you're doing a few, or of the things you're approaching in a business, what is your top priority? And then sometimes like there's a really amazing quote from the world of like literature and writing, is the idea of killing your darlings. Like sometimes, and I think that's a super important for startups. It's like in writing, you can have a character, you can write 300, 500, 1,000 pages, and you can sometimes realize this character, it doesn't work with the plot, it doesn't work with where we're going, and you have to kill off the character. And that's what they call it, kill your darlings. So I think that's a big lesson I've been learning, is that, it's just around focus.
I love that. So creating that sense of batch focus and being able to prioritize what you're really spending your time on, what you want to be spending your time on, and having the strength and the courage to kill off the darlings that don't quite fit into what you're really able to do.
Yep. And I think as young entrepreneurs, especially, like understanding if that you can be in it for the long game. If you're in your mid 20s, you've got 40, 50 years of work in front of you. Like, you might have an idea and love it, but it's not working right now. Take all that work. Like, I always have folders in Google Drive, move it over, and maybe you revisit it in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years from now. So that's a kind of, I like that longer vision too.
We have so much life to live and so much time ahead of us. We can actually do many more things than we give ourselves credit for. So I love that idea. Amazing. Maren, it looks like we've taken up about 20 minutes of your time or so, but I am curious to ask, if there is a next genner who wants to get more involved with what you're doing, maybe look into going remote or connecting with you, what's the best way that they can reach out?
So I am Maren Kate on Twitter, and I'm marenkate@gmail.com. Either way, I'm accessible.
Easy peasy. I love it. Maren, thank you so very much for coming on to Mentor Moments with us today and being such an integral part of the NextGen family. We so appreciate you.
Absolutely. Thanks so much.
NextGeners, we'll talk to you soon.